So now we're going to talk about lemniscates, and that's the pronunciation according to Webster's Dictionary, Merriam-Webster. I always say lemniscates, and you'll hear that like in other videos too, but not just me. Okay, so let's look at the forms here. Oops. You see you have an r squared and an a squared, and notice that it's 2 theta in parentheses. And then you have it for cosine, you have it where it's the opposite, and then you have it where it's sine, and then the opposite with the sine. Okay? So these are called lemniscates. I just want to talk a little bit about this symmetry. Okay, so, and then we'll go to Desmos. So looking at this, if we were to plug in negative r and negative theta. So we're checking to see if it's symmetric with respect to theta equaling pi over 2. We would get r squared equals 4 cosine 2 theta. I'm sorry, the opposite of 2 theta, but we know that equals 4 cosine 2 theta because it is forgot my square. It's an even function. So, okay, so it turns out it is in fact the same thing. And so it is symmetric about pi over 2. Okay? And then you can check it for if it's symmetric about the polar axis. And so then we would have r squared equals 4 cosine 2 negative theta, but see, that's going to work out too. So yes, it's going to be symmetric about the polar axis. And then you can check the pole. If you put in negative r and you square it, does that equal 4 cosine 2 theta? And yeah, because that's going to be r squared equals 4 cosine 2 theta. So it's actually symmetric about all of them. Well, about pi over 2, the polar axis, and the pole. Okay, so ours is a cosine 2 theta, and it is positive, so we're looking at this form right here, this first one right there. And so think about the symmetry. You know, could you fold it along the polar axis, and would it line up? Could you fold it along the theta equals pi over 2 axis, and would they match up? And then finally, could you do both folds, and would it line up? And it would. Okay? All right, so I just wanted to talk about this symmetry. Okay, so this is what happens if you type in Desmos, and it goes to, you know, go to Desmos graphing calculator. And this is what you get. Okay, so let me click on this so you can see it a little bit. So it has this piece of graph paper. I'm going to click on Tools here, and I'm going to change it so that it's in a polar grid. So I'm going to stick with radians. You can put it in degrees. Sometimes it's easier to work with it in degrees. I don't do a lot with Desmos, but I'm just going to show you a little bit because you might find it useful. All right. What we want to do is we want to be able to type in the equation of what we're going to graph. Now, if you'll remember the one we were working on, it said r squared equals 4 cosine 2 theta. The problem is Desmos won't do r squared equals because they need it to be linear. Now, there might be a way around that. I checked some things, but I didn't find anything that I liked. Okay, so I'm going to say r equals, and then I want to use the square root button. So basically what I did was I took the square root of both sides. Now, there's a keypad down here that will give you some of the symbols. So I don't know if you can see it, but there's a square root button. And so it types the square root there. And then I'm just going to type 4, and I just do this with my, I'm on a computer, I just do it with my keyboard. You can use the keypad if you need to. And then I'm just going to start typing cosine, and it turns it into the function. By the way, those functions exist over here if you need that. And then I'm going to put a parenthesis, and then 2, and then I just start typing theta, the word theta, and it will automatically change it. Now, notice that it drew the graph like instantaneously. It draws the graph for you there. Okay, so that's what it looks like. And And you can say, that's cool. And it is, it's cool. And I'll show you some more things on another example. This video is going to be kind of long. If you want to do another equation, so I just clicked on that, I have a touch screen, like you might be wondering, hey, well, what if it was, you know, I was supposed to do plus or minus, right? Well, let's go ahead and graph that then. So r equals the opposite of the square root of 4 cosine. And it's kind of cool because you can just type it in to theta. And theta exists also. I think I hit the cap. Theta, it's on the keyboard. If you hit ABC, you can find theta. It's right there. Now I have too many thetas, but there, it's gone. And so notice that it switched colors for the graph, and now it's in red. It looks exactly like the one we had in purple, right? Okay, so this isn't too surprising to us because we know it's symmetric about the polar axis, theta equals pi over 2, and the poles. So that may not be super, you know, surprising to us. But you could see them both that way if they had been different. Okay. So that's all I'm going to show you on this video, and then in the next one we'll also work with Desmos.